Yangyang is honestly one of the most underrated characters in Wuthering Waves because she's mostly compared to other 4-star DPS characters such as Sanhua and Dongjin, which is understandable because Sanhua and Dongjin provide some supportive ultra skills that are tailor-made for specific DPS characters to do damage, such as the 23% havoc damage deepened by Dongjin and the 35% basic attack damage boost by Sanhua. But what most players fail to realize is that Wuthering Waves endgame modes like the Tower of Adversity is a type of endgame that does not really care about how big your damage is, but rather how consistent you do damage over time in order to be able to clear it within the specified time limit. So this means that if you start off big but fail to maintain damage consistency due to insufficient resonance energy acquisition, it will be difficult to clear it in time, which is where Yangyang comes in. If you're new here, welcome to another video that belongs to the character breakdown series, where I spend an unhealthy amount of time playing one specific character so that I can provide you with tips and tricks that will help you enjoy them even more. This won't be a generic guide where I read character descriptions because you can do that yourself. What this video rather does is to give you extensive knowledge on how to effectively use Yangyang to help you clear content much faster and have a good time while doing it, because that's what really matters in the end. In today's video, we're going to be answering some of the toughest questions you've been having on your mind related to Yangyang, such as what is her actual role in your team building, how does she compare to other sub DPS characters, how to consistently use her Forte every rotation, and what is her best build as a sub DPS. If this video proves helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. On the surface, Yangyang's supportive kit, which generates 4 resonance energy every second for 5 seconds to the incoming character, might seem like a utility that is meant to help you beat enemies easier and faster early on in the game, since the liberation scaling on most DPS characters are relatively higher compared to their Forte and resonance skill. However, as you progress throughout the game by beating the Tower of Adversity and all holograms, you start to realize that her resonance energy acquisition ultra skill is actually more powerful than how it looks on paper. Other sub DPS characters like Sanhua and Dongjin have ultra skills that are meant to buff the incoming character, mostly your DPS, to deal damage, and is quite powerful because deepen and amplification effects act as a multiplier, which basically means more damage. But if you're not able to do damage with that incoming character who has the deepen or amplification effect applied to their damage for any reason, it does not only waste the buff but makes you lose time as well. A very typical example is Crownless, who starts a very long combo at certain time intervals when you're up against him in the overdrive zone or fighting against his hologram. If you've stacked up all your buffs on your DPS character, when the long combo begins, you have no choice but to effectively dodge all these attacks, which rewards you with concerto energy but not so much resonance energy, and you lose the buffs that you've already gained from your sub DPS since it's only 14 seconds. If you're having any issue with the overdrive zone, check out the channel for a guide that helps you clear it without going crazy. Boss attack patterns are not the only problem here. In the description of Sanhua's ultra skill, it states that the incoming character gets the buff and will lose it when they exit the field, which includes quick swaps as well, because the game considers quick swap as the character has left the field, even though you can clearly see both of them on the field for a brief moment, and then your DPS goes back attacking the enemy when the quick swap is complete. So that means that characters like Sanhua, Dongjin, Zhezhi, and Mortefi lose their ultra skill supportive capability when you do a quick swap or accidentally swap to another character. However, Yangyang's resonance energy generation still works even when you swap to another character from your DPS, which opens the door for some insane possibilities. The first thing that comes into mind is versatility. Yangyang's outro skill does not discriminate between whether your DPS character is Aero, Glacial, Havoc, Spectral, or Fusion, which means that every character will get the 20 energy regardless of their element. This opens up the possibility of running her with DPS characters that heavily relies on their liberation as their main damage source, and we have many of them including Chupacabra, Zhang Liao, Changli, Havoc Rover, and Jian. This makes your DPS character's damage output stay consistent without worrying too much about energy regeneration, but this is where you might be thinking that your DPS character's damage output will be lower, and that's totally right. However, you can make up for the damage loss by putting in time and resources to properly build your Yangyang to do damage alongside your DPS character's consistent damage output with an almost 100% liberation uptime. This works even better when you have her S3, which increases her resonance skill damage, S4 for increasing the damage of her Forte, S5 for making her liberation hit like a truck, and her S6 for a team-wide attack buff. I currently have her at S4, and her Forte can hit for 25,000 damage, and her liberation can hit for 45,000 damage with Shorekeeper's buffs, which is very impressive for using a Moonlit Clouds Echo Sonata effect with 84% crit rate and 208% crit damage. She's running the Emerald of Genesis sword, crit rate 4 cost Echo, an attack 3 cost, and an arrow damage bonus 3 cost Echo. The rest are your regular attack main stats 1 cost echoes. If you don't have Emerald of Genesis, the Endless Collapse is the only weapon that I recommend because of the high base attack. She also has an energy cost of 100, so you don't have to run any energy regen 3 cost echoes as long as you do your rotations properly. Another thing that makes her unique is that she makes your rotations much faster than you might think. Using her skill and heavy attack in between quick swaps significantly reduces the time she spends on the field for the next rotation due to high amount of concerto energy regeneration, making sure she quickly supplies energy to your main DPS as fast as possible. Another benefit that Yangyang provides for quicker rotations is preventing your DPS character from using their resonance skill or Forte after their damage mode ends for resonance energy recovery, reducing the time they spend not doing damage from their main damage source. Yangyang is also the best sub DPS grouper that we currently have in the game. While her grouping capabilities may not be as strong as Jiyan, she does just fine if you know which enemies to target during your rotations. The way mob enemies work in Wuthering Waves is that some will attack you from a distance while some will attack you at close range. If you always prioritize the ones that attack you from a distance or at long range, the ones that attack you at close range will build up aggression and always come to you instead, which makes it very easy to capture and disorient them in Yangyang's skill and resonance liberation. Her S3 will also increase the radius and pulling effect of her resonance skill, which makes her even better as a grouper. The sole purpose of DPS characters in general is to do damage, so putting an energy regen 3 cost echo on them for consistent liberation uptime significantly affects their damage potential, so your only choice is to rely on substats and you have no control over which one you roll when tuning your echoes. A lot of players might also argue that as you take the time to get good substats on your DPS characters, Yangyang gradually becomes redundant, which might be true to some extent, but chances of you rolling crit rate, crit damage is already low as it is, and adding energy regen to the mix further reduces the possibility of getting all 3 of them on one echo at the same time, so you'll normally settle for crit rate and crit damage to help keep your sanity in check, which means that Yangyang will still maintain her value for many patches to come. Kuro Games seems to have a particular trend where sub DPS characters that act as a buffer and support to dedicated DPS characters are all 5 stars, including Yanlin, Zhezhi, and Shangli. So chances of you pulling these characters in addition to the DPS character will punch a few holes in your wallet. So as long as the DPS character is reliant on their liberation, Yangyang will still have a much higher value. Yangyang also makes the game a bit easier to play as well. If you've watched my Jiyan character breakdown, you'll notice that the rotations that help him get his liberation every rotation is quite complicated, involving strict timing and echo animation cancelling. Yangyang makes it a bit easier because you can simply skip all that and focus on the normal rotations from your healer to sub DPS and to your DPS as the game intended. Now let's see how you can use her Forte every rotation. Yangyang needs 3 Forte stacks to use her Judgment Cut Forte ability. You can recover the stacks using her Resonance skill, Intro skill, basic attack after a dodge counter, basic attack after a heavy attack, and her 5th basic attack. There are 2 methods to help you use her Forte every rotation. The first one is the easiest, which I recommend for casual players who don't want anything to do with quick swaps, and the second one ensures that you get the fastest rotation as possible. For the first one, what you need to do is to gain 1 stack before you intro with Yangyang from your healer. So this is how the rotation goes. You first start by using Yangyang's skill, which helps with grouping, and gain 1 Forte stack. Then swap to Shorekeeper or your healer to build concerto energy, use their echo skill, and then swap to Yangyang. After the plunge animation from your intro, your resonance skill should be off cooldown, so you can use it to recover another stack. You now have full Forte for her Judgment Cut Forte ability. You can then proceed to use her Liberation and Forte to fully fill her concerto energy, and then swap to your main DPS, then go crazy on the enemies. When the rotation starts again from your healer, repeat the whole process once again. For the second method, it gets a bit more complicated, so I recommend this method for my highly cracked Wuthering Waves players out there. Here's how it goes. You first start the same way we did with the first method and then intro with Yangyang. Yangyang always attacks from midair during her intro skill, so after the intro, hold your basic attack to start her plunge animation, but don't let go until she starts her heavy attack thrust animation. When you see the thrust animation, quickly start pressing your basic attack to perform a backslash that recovers another Forte stack. Now you have full Forte stacks without using her skill like the first method. Then use her Liberation and Forte to fully fill her Concerto energy. If your Concerto energy is not full by then, simply do 1 or 2 basic attacks to fully fill it. The reason why we are saving her skill is to use it after the intro to the main DPS character in the team to help Yangyang recover Concerto energy by doing quick swap to Yangyang when your main DPS starts an animation that's a bit longer for you to do quick swap to Yangyang and then come right back to your main DPS. When your main DPS starts the same animation again, quickly swap to Yangyang and then use her heavy attack, then end it with a basic attack but cancel the backslash attack by swapping to your main DPS. When your main DPS Concerto energy gets full, you can now swap back to your healer to repeat the whole process once again by using Yangyang's skill first at the start of the rotation. Also keep in mind that her heavy attack has interruption to resistance, so feel free to tank the incoming damage that is non-lethal and then rely on your healer to heal you back up. This rotation helps you build not only Concerto energy for Yangyang, but resonance energy as well because her S2 gives you 10 resonance energy after using a heavy attack. So when you intro with Yangyang from your healer, it becomes way easier to swap to your main DPS to do damage quickly because you've already built full Forte and decent amount of Concerto and resonance energy. A lot of players might also compare her to Zhezhi because Zhezhi has an inherent skill that instantly gives energy to the character that triggers her outro skill. But let's be honest here, Zhezhi provides a different set of utility including coordinated attacks, resonance skill damage buff, and glacial damage buff as well. So you can't really call her a better version of Yangyang since she lacks grouping abilities and she's not suitable for doing quick swaps because of her outro buffs similar to Sanhua as I previously described. On top of that, there will be a competition for her usage because she's mostly suitable in Jinshi's team if you have Jinshi in your account for quick incandescence generation for Jinshi. Since Yangyang's energy regeneration outro takes a bit of time to build up, you can actually swap to your healer after the intro to your main DPS to use their skill, which will be off cooldown, and then quickly swap back to your main DPS, helping your healer recover resonance energy and Concerto energy for even more faster rotations because it saves you time by skipping the casting animation when you intro to your healer from your main DPS if it's on cooldown, and then when it's off cooldown, you can use it one more time, which was all made possible because of Yangyang. And in most situations, you don't have to wait for your DPS character to get all the energy because they might actually need about 4 to 10 resonance energy to add up to the resonance energy that they already possess so that they'll be able to cast their Liberation. Overall, Yangyang is a very decent sub-DPS character with a lot of utility to provide to your team building only if you take the time to use her effectively with the tips and tricks that I just gave you. Always keep in mind that her actual role is to help main damage dealers heavily reliant on their Liberation to do consistent damage alongside her own damage and grouping capabilities, helping you clear most difficult contents that Kuro Games throws at you at any time. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching because I put a lot of time into this and it will mean a lot to me if you liked the video and subscribed. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
So please whatever